Geronimo was one of the most famous Native Americans in history. He was a Chiricahua Apache, born in 1829, to a life of turmoil at the tail end of America's westward expansion. His life was fraught with heartache, but that didn't stop the brilliant tactician and leader from making history by fiercely resisting the colonization of Apache lands by Mexico and America in the mid-1800s. Here's 5 facts you need to know about this incredible outlaw. Please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos. Geronimo's wife and children were murdered when he was a young man. Geronimo came of age during a period of bitter conflict between the Chiricahua Apaches and the Mexicans. In response to the Apaches' penchant for staging raids to gather horses and provisions, the Mexican government had begun ambushing Apache settlements and offering lucrative bounties for their scalps. In 1851, while Geronimo and several other warriors were in the town of Llanos on a trading mission, Colonel Jose Maria Carrasco and a detachment of around 400 Mexican soldiers ransacked his Badonco home and slaughtered many of its inhabitants. When Geronimo returned later that night, he found that his mother, his wife, and his 3 young children had all been murdered. "I had lost all," he said in his autobiography. Following the massacre, Geronimo swore vengeance against Mexico and led a series of bloody raids on its soldiers and settlements. Geronimo's followers credited him with supernatural powers. While he often exerted considerable influence over the Apaches, Geronimo was never a tribal chief. Among the Chiricahua, he was better known for his skills as a shaman, or medicine man. Those who followed Geronimo exalt him with a variety of supernatural powers, including the ability to heal the sick, slow time, avoid bullets, bring on rainstorms, and even witness events over great distances. In one incident, a few warriors were sitting around a campfire during a raiding expedition when Geronimo suddenly had a premonition that U.S. troops had attacked their base camp. After arriving at the site several days later, they found that Geronimo's vision had been correct. The Americans had already captured the encampment. Nearly a quarter of the U.S. Army took part in the final hunt for Geronimo. On May 17, 1885, Geronimo and 135 Apache women, men, and children took flight from their reservation for the final time. The famed warrior was then in his 60s, but he remained as determined as ever, often pushing his group to cover as much as 70 miles a day to avoid the American cavalry and Apache scouts on their trail. Over the next several months, Geronimo's fugitives raided countless Mexican and American settlements, killing several civilians. They nearly surrendered in March 1886, but Geronimo and 40 followers reneged on the agreement at the last minute and escaped under the cover of darkness. Soon the Indians were being pursued by 5,000 U.S. soldiers, nearly a quarter of the standing army, as well as some 3,000 Mexicans. Geronimo was able to elude both forces for over 5 months, but by August, he and his followers had grown weary of life on the run. On September 4, 1886, he finally gave himself up to General Nelson Miles at Skeleton Canyon, Arizona. In laying down his arms, he became the last Indian leader to formally surrender to the United States military. Geronimo participated in Theodore Roosevelt's presidential inauguration. Geronimo's most famous public appearance came on March 4, 1905, when he took part in President Theodore Roosevelt's inaugural parade in Washington, D.C. Flanked by 5 other Indian leaders, the elderly warrior rode a pony down Pennsylvania Avenue, eliciting cries of "Hooray for Geronimo" from spectators. 5 days later, the Indians got a chance to speak to Roosevelt in person at the White House. Geronimo, still a prisoner of war, took the opportunity to plead with the president to send the Chiricahua back to their native lands in the West. "I pray you to cut the ropes and make me free," he said. By then, nearly 20 years had passed since Geronimo's surrender, but Roosevelt turned down the request out of fear that war would once again break out if the Apaches returned home. The federal government wouldn't free the Chiricahuas until 1913, 4 years after Geronimo's 1909 death from pneumonia. Not all of his battles were considered successful. Though his first battle was a victory, Geronimo spent several years early in his career getting nailed by the Mexican people. His first several raids in Sonora were beaten back badly, his band of warriors returning empty-handed. Geronimo himself spent a lot of this time injured. In one attack on a convoy, he rushed into the fray only to slip on some blood and get smashed in the skull with the butt of a Mexican soldier's rifle. In another nearly successful raid, Geronimo's Apaches were followed by soldiers, and Geronimo was shot several times. In fact, the opening volley actually saw him shot in the face, after which the soldier got up and fought his way to safety. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. Be sure to check the description for some cool videos and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out.